Hello and welcome back to 2 of 16. I am James and this is Derek. Yes, and we had a topic today which is we wanted to explore each other's hobbies, and I actually don't know all of Derek's hobbies, so I'd love to know, and then compare them against mine and actually see if there are any patterns we see along the lines of MBTI is what I was thinking. I would love to start over there with you, and I'll share some of the things that I already know. That I've heard you had a phase of producing music. Actually, would you like to provide details for that?
Around the time when I was 14 years old, I got my first computer, and I don't know how I heard about it, but I learned that there was an app called Fruity Loops. I think a friend of mine suggested it because I remember just the name sounded really funny and reminded me of the children's cereal. I don't know. I growing up in the 80s and 90s, I really liked synthetic music. I think not synthetic, but like electronic music, which uses synthesizers and those types of things. And I've always thought that was pretty cool, but I never really learned how to play the piano, and I feel like that's essential. Before I got around this time, actually, I started playing bass guitar, so I was already producing music in that sense.
Well, I'm curious if that is linked to performances there, and also I'm curious if there was music in your life before that.
From the age of 3 years old, around the time when I learned how to speak, apparently, as I was told from my mother, I used to sing to her, and so that was something she told me about a few times. It wasn't even like, it was just nonsense sounds. It was just like me going ooh or something like this. And around the same time, I became a big Beastie Boys fan. Mm-hmm. So around the age of 3 or 4 years old.
Oh, you were actually a fan?
Yeah, because I would sing. I learned all the lyrics,
okay,
which is fascinating because I can't memorize anything now. So anyway, I was into music from a really young age, mostly hip hop. But yeah, so it started out with hip hop, and so I really enjoyed the beats. I really enjoyed the bass. I just enjoyed I loved studying the waves and how the sounds work and just understanding how those things work. And I'm not sure how that led to me wanting to create music. It's just we were talking before about my interest in languages, and I mentioned that music for me is an expression. It's a way to express myself. And so it's a way for me to express myself, not in words. So there's lots of things that I want to say. Like, I want to say how I feel, but I feel like it's easier to say how one feels through music. Just like you could probably say the same thing with dance. Some people who like to dance, they say they're expressing themselves. And I feel like that expression isn't just some artsy fartsy thing that people like, they give it a name like that. It's like, no, I feel like it's just that thing that there's something inside of you that you, like I said, you try to express it with words, but it's just really difficult. Yeah. Anyway, so Fruity Loops was an app that you could use for free at the time, and you basically could just add your bass. You can add all your drum sounds, more or less. You could add your own samples. You could, I think similar to now, you could install packs or just install different sounds and things. Yeah, it was just really fun. So I would just make these really cool beats, and I just really liked it.
I'm curious. Okay, so because I also had a music production phase. Mm-hmm. I would say mine. It was on and off. In total, maybe 3 months of time, over the span of like 8 years. So I'm curious if, like, what this looked like when you got into production. Like, how into it did you get? What was the timeline? I'm curious.
I really don't know. I was balancing school with that, and I wasn't able to do it all the time. So it was just when I could like sneak on, because when I said I had a computer, it wasn't mine. So it was just whenever I could get on the computer and do it. Mm-hmm. Or I would go to a friend's house. I would bring like a floppy disk or something with like, I think there were files you could bring with you. I would just use a friend's computer or something. I don't know the timeline at all, honestly. Everything's blurry back then. Mm-hmm. I just know it's just one of those things where I could just sit there for hours and just get lost in doing it until I wasn't doing it anymore.
Okay, so it was playing around and hearing how things sound, and not so much oriented around, say, like how many, like, this song is done, kind of like these things. Did you think that way?
I don't remember. I know I produced some longer songs, and I've also produced just shorter things I guess you could say composed, if you will, but it was like, because it was a hobby, it really didn't matter. There was no direction with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And to be honest with you, there was a lack of. I mean, I wasn't able to purchase the full version, so I was always just like, it was one of those things. If I can't do it fully, I didn't want to do it all, so I kind of just gave up on it.
I see.
Yeah. So, what did you use to produce your music?
I used Reason. Apparently these are called DAWs, like a digital something audio workbench or something, and it's called Reason. And I got it illegally to like use it, back in that day. And I tried Fruit Loops for a while as well. And I think I tried one other thing. What is it called? Ableton?
I honestly don't know. Once I found something I liked, I just stuck with it.
Yeah. There was one other like sample-based program that I tried first with friends back in high school. And then I went to Reason and I played with it through like on and off in college and high school. And I made I would say I made like 3 songs, and then I was done.
Yeah, I mean, recently, it was like 3 years ago, I wrote a song just because like I was talking to somebody, a friend of mine and colleague at the time, and I don't remember what he said, but it was so funny to me that I just sampled it, and then I wrote a song around it, and I wrote a rap. So I wrote a beat. The sample was in the beat, and then I said some words, and more or less making fun of my friend. So like the rap was like, what do they call that when a rapper like hates on another rapper?
Well, burn or
yeah, it was a burn. It was
okay.
a burn track, and so I don't know why I do that.
Diss track, yeah.
Yeah, diss track. I tend to like to mess with people, so it's funny to me. That's the INTJ humor, because apparently things that I find funny people rarely ever do.
It's yeah, I've noticed. I remember I brought up that one time I said SE humor is very in your face, and I feel like it's really trying to get a rise out of people, just to say that. And then NE humor I think is more, well, I know for me, my humor, I like to bring the person in on the joke a little bit, like we're both playing around here kind of feeling.
Yeah, I think that's another thing, is like I'm expecting people to understand, because to me it's not funny if I have to explain, or if obviously yeah, it's just my expectations are always way higher than what the results are.
Okay.
Like, I honestly don't think anyone ever really gets my jokes.
I see.
Those types. I mean, there are certain ones, sure. I've been told I'm funny.
Yeah, well, I mean, I found you funny here and there. So okay, we have music production is one, right? Another one I know.
If you want to tell me the ones you know.
Well, the other one I know is skateboarding. Was that a thing?
I don't know if skateboarding is a hobby when it's like your mode of transportation everywhere you go. So, while I rode it to get from A to B, I also, when I'm at B, I would mess around on it, do tricks and things. So, yeah, I guess it depends on your definition of hobby. Skateboarding, sure. And like, I wasn't one of those people who really wanted to skate at a skate park, because I can't stand wearing knee pads and elbow pads and all that stuff. And honestly, just the idea of breaking more bones than I already have was not ideal to me. So I usually avoided like those types of things.
How many bones have you broken?
I've broken my foot, ankle, and leg all at once from jumping down a flight of stairs at the age of 4.
Okay.
I've had my nose broken more than 3 times in my life. I don't think I've broken anything else. Just okay. I didn't like those experiences.
Okay, gotcha. That's way more than me. I have broken 0 bones.
Oh, so, okay. Yeah, but I mean, I've had tons of injuries. Like another thing I did, I rode a BMX. I rode a bike. Also, most of my life, or most of my adolescence and childhood, and like when I was coming home from school, my friend and I would sort of race home down a hill with traffic and all that stuff, and like we would jump curbs, and I just bunny hopped. I think it was I was too late to bunny hop over the curb, up the curb, And so I hit the curb. So the bike hits the curb, and then obviously you fly over the handlebars. And there was a sign. It was for a bank, it was like PNC Bank or something. And for whatever reason, anyway, so I landed on my chin. I still have a scar from that. I had to get stitches, and I hit my arm. I remember I thought I broke my arm on the sign, and I didn't. It hurt. So I rode my bike home, dripping blood everywhere as usual, and I just said to my parents, as you can see, I am covered in blood. What should I do? Yeah, and they got angry. Yeah, hobbies. I mean, skateboarding is super cool because, you know, it's small. You can carry it with you. You can use it as a weapon, and you can also play with it. Like, you can do tricks and things. So I would ride it to school, and then I'd just put it in my locker. Yeah. Did you ever try skateboarding?
When I was in high school, once again, I bought a board because I wanted to learn how to do like a kickflip. Learn how to do like a kickflip. I tried that for like a month, and then I put it down. And then in college, to get around, people were getting longboards to ride around, and I got one.
Yeah, of course you did.
I learned how to ride it. So
no, that's a California thing, right?
I guess so. Yeah. I was San Diego, so.
Is it hilly?
That feeling. Yeah, it's very hilly, and you know people get better and better at the hills, but I never took on like the biggest ones. No.
Because there was just like one guy at my school who got a longboard, and we all just were like, why? We didn't have hills. And like there was a lot of stones and rock. The concrete was hard to ride on. And I'm just like, you're not going to cruise anywhere. He wanted to cruise. He was like he wanted to be a hippie. He was trying to bring the hippie thing back. And he like, we're living in the 90s, right? Early 2000s. And so he thought it was cool to have that. It was not. I was riding an 80s style fishtail. So I had multiple boards. I had my like trick board, like the lightweight, like, you know, like more modern board, but I also had a fishtail with rails on the side. I don't know what you call it on the back, but like it's basically a piece of plastic that sort of, when you would stop on the back of your tail. Yeah. Right. If you do that with a modern board, it eats away at the wood, right? Back then it didn't, because there was this huge piece of plastic that you couldn't get through.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there was like grips on the front and sides, because you like back in the 80s there were a lot of grab tricks. So I learned how to do all those types of things and like flip my board and stand on the edge and all those like nerdy old school tricks. Like I wasn't that much into doing kickflips and all that stuff. Like you can't do a kickflip with that board. It weighs like, I don't know, 10 kilograms or something.
Was that okay? Was that back in the day where boards were more one-sided? And did you start boarding before the kickflip happened? I'm curious.
I mean, I don't know when the first kickflip happened, but I definitely was skateboarding. I mean, I started skateboarding at the age of 7 or 8, so that would put me in the early 90s.
Oh, okay, so that's after, I'm pretty sure.
It was like, I mean, we're looking at pictures here, and it wasn't any of these, but this is what a fishtail looks like. So it's not like, because like the boards these days are symmetrical. Yeah. Right? So this is not symmetrical, and it would have had grips on the side here. So it was similar to this board that I'm showing you. Actually, this one has grips. So anyway, there were grips on there, and you did grip tricks, and you basically would flip your board with your hand while you're standing on it. Oh, so technically, I did. It's not a kick flip. I didn't kick it. I flipped it though. So it was the same trick done differently.
Yeah, which is if you look at really old skateboarding tricks before like the kickflip was invented, that was like the majority of what they did. Okay, interesting.
And not that it matters, like with computers, I built my own board, so I didn't just go buy they have a name for it. I think it was called a complete deck or something. I don't know, something like that. I like basically put everything together. I did have someone put the grip tape on because that's a pain. But basically everything else I purchased separate pieces. I mean, there's only wheels, bearings, trucks, board. It's not a very complicated process. Yeah.
Okay, so we have here music production, skateboarding, and I mean, it's from what I hear, at least, you were much more pushing the limits. You were more spontaneous, I think, than I was with like these things, getting around. Like I want to jump that kind of stuff.
I don't know that there was a degree of spontaneity though. It was just I didn't like walking. I mean, there was a degree of practicality there. So, I mean, I didn't skateboard just to do tricks. I skateboarded because it got me from A to B, and I could do tricks. Whereas someone who's more more extroverted sensing types, they're into the experience of riding. Where I didn't care for that much. I mean, you fall a lot, you hurt yourself a lot when you do tricks. I've been injured many times. I have dents in my shins from this, even today, despite not having broken anything.
From trying tricks.
Yeah.
Ah,
I would try like hundreds of times. I would just be there all day doing it sometimes with my friends.
See.
Yeah. Oh, I broke my hand. That's another bone. Just realized. Yeah. Not while skateboarding.
I see.
Any other hobbies of mine that you know of? That's only 2, and there's probably more than 10.
So I mean, I've heard you do a bit of freestyle rap. Was that a hobby, or is that just like a little thing you do?
I honestly don't know. I mean, when it comes to music, I love singing. I love listening to music. I've been obsessed with music my whole life. Sometimes I like to use music to express myself, not creating, just to be like, I'll just have a song that I'm singing, and I almost subliminally want people to know why I'm singing it. Because it's like I'm actually saying something. And I don't think anyone's ever noticed that. And just because we're bringing it up now, this is super rare that like, or just, this is the only reason why they would come up. Yeah. So you said rap. Like, I mean, I used to do freestyling all the time just for fun. It's like another one of those things, you just hang out with your friends, you have nothing to do, maybe there's a beat in the background and you just...
Would you literally cipher, like pass off the verse to each person?
No, they were all idiots. I was the only one who was capable of actually doing it.
So they weren't into it. You were just doing it.
No, what I'm saying is like they're into it, but they just can't. You know what I mean? It's like they maybe enjoyed what I was doing, or I don't know. We were just doing all kinds of different things. Yeah, but I mean, a lot of times I was just doing it by myself. You know? It's like I don't really always know that people are around, as you know. So, yeah. But I mean, music-wise, I mentioned I played bass guitar. I was in 2 bands, one of which I was the bassist, and another one I was the singer.
Okay.
And again, those didn't really go. They didn't amount to anything. It was just something that we did. You know, we didn't really perform much.
Oh, okay. And the other one I know is learning languages.
Oh yeah. So learning languages, that began like officially in 6th grade. So the first year of middle school, I learned Spanish, French, and German a bit. I already knew some German though, but I wouldn't consider that wasn't a hobby, like the amount that I already knew. So anyway, from 7th grade, I was like, okay, I'm just going to stick to Spanish for now. And so I stuck with Spanish for 7 years. I learned Spanish for 7 years. I took German.
Is that one you still use, by the way? Spanish. I haven't heard you use Spanish.
The issue with Spanish is that for some reason, the Japanese that I know mixes with it. So I can't speak a Spanish sentence without, I don't know, it mixes with Japanese. I can't explain why. I think it has something to do with the yo that they use a lot in Spanish, and the endings of words are o and a lot.
Okay.
So vowel endings.
I can imagine the cadence of it is also
the cadence similar. Exactly. So I can read it, I can listen to it, I can understand enough. I'm sure if I tried, I could speak it. Yeah, and it's the same with French. And honestly, I mean, intuition allows me to understand Italian, French, and all this stuff when it's written. Listening is a challenge, but it's a lot of guessing. It's a lot of guesswork. Yeah, so foreign languages was Spanish for 7 years, and then German just because I got it. It was like an easy 100%. Like it was an easy A+. You know, I just took it as a minor in high school.
High school, okay.
Yeah. And then I actually, my first bachelor's degree was Japanese as a foreign language, with literature and linguistics. So I learned a lot about Asian literature, so Chinese, Korean, Japanese, so on and so forth. And linguistics to me is also cool because I learned English linguistics and Japanese linguistics, and like how languages are creative. I don't even know what linguistics really is. It's just like how the words are built and sounds and things, and like how you use your tongue.
Oh yeah, okay, like the area of the mouth you use for that sound.
Yeah, exactly, and the names for things like a glottal stop, and glottal is anything to do with your tongue. So when you like tongue is a glottal stop sound, and so you learn those types of things.
So what you studied was literally it was linguistics.
Yeah,
that's your okay. Oh,
that was part of my major.
Oh, okay, yeah. Part of it.
So I learned, like for example, I learned the history of where different sounds came from in the U.S., especially vowel sounds. And so that's how if I hear somebody's like, there's probably like 20 different Southern accents, and the average American is just like, that person's Southern. But I can say, no, they're from the panhandle of Florida, you know, like the different areas of the states.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'm curious if the terminology stays with you. Is like, oh, they use this sound, and so they're from this area.
Well, it's I guess if we tie this to MBTI, I don't keep information on purpose, so it's not something I'm accessing directly. It's something that my subconscious accesses for me. So I tend to just go, oh, are you from Tennessee? They're like, yeah, from Nashville.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know, and I'm not saying, I don't know if it works perfectly anymore, because like the less I use it, the less, you know, likely I am to remember.
Okay, so got it. Wait, okay. So, did you say Japanese, Chinese, and Korean literature? Or?
Yeah, literature. So that was a lot of like, because like when you're in high school in America, I'm not sure about every state, but you learn a lot of Western literature. You learn I'll be honest with you, I can't stand Shakespeare. You know, he made up his own language, and it's horrible. I was just not interested in it. I mean, I liked learning Greek mythology and that kind of stuff, but like when it comes to actual literature from the West, it was so boring to me. It was so mundane. And yeah, I just had a strong interest in learning about the East. And I had connections to Buddhism from a very young age. And so learning and reading Buddhist poetry from those, like, I don't remember what time period it was, like 1,200 years ago or something. It was just really, really cathartic. Or just, it was very relaxing. It's very soothing, you know. It's just, I just felt like it was something I connected with very deeply, whereas I never could connect with, I can't think of any other literature other than Shakespeare out of the top of my head. It's just like, we have to read novels and stuff, like they were boring. They were not interesting to me. Yeah. So I read a lot of books from Japan from the 1950s and onwards. So I read all the famous novels. I'm a huge Murakami Haruki fan. Read all of his books. I had a bunch of them, and then I got rid of them. And I enjoy that. They're fun reads.
In English or Japanese?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they fine in English? I'm curious.
Yeah, obviously it's easier to read, but the nuances there's some, like, I just don't know what it is. It's very subtle. Knowing a foreign language is great when reading the native version of something, because you are always getting a different story. Yeah. You know, and if it isn't even a different story, you will create I'm almost certain you will create a different story in your head.
Oh yeah.
You know, because obviously you have to use your imagination, right? Yeah. These are nonfiction novels. Yeah. I'm
reminded of no. I'm suddenly reminded of.
I said nonfiction, I meant fiction.
Oh, okay.
I said the wrong word.
Okay. I just randomly have encountered some Korean poetry, and I think about what it would sound like translated to English, and I just think like there'd be just so much lost, because it's very simple poetry, which is like mom, thank you for cooking me the food, and like thank you for putting me to sleep.
You read that in English, it sounds like a note that she left you. You know? No, it's exactly what I was just thinking in my head. Haiku. In I believe it was 12th grade English class in the US, we wrote haiku and we wrote other stuff, and it's just, haiku is not something you write in English. 575, like, you think, well, but it's the same amount of syllables. Well, that's the point. You can say much more in 5 syllables of Japanese than you can in English. It just, honestly, it sounds ridiculous. It's so pointless. There's no reason to write that. Or like renkan or these types of things, we wrote one of those even in university, and we wrote it in English, and I thought, this is silly. Like, it just doesn't sound right. The feeling's not there. So I do, from time to time, I'll write a haiku in Japanese. I think I wrote one in the winter. I was at the gym and I wrote one. I just suddenly felt compelled to write it, and that's what I did. Yeah. So I don't know why I like it. I like the ambiguity.
When you say it, what exactly
what are we talking about? Poetry, specifically haiku.
Okay. So okay, got it. We're talking about poetry now. Okay.
I'm all over the board.
Oh, well, I'm in my head. I'm switching into saying this is another of your hobbies, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. Again, I don't know what a hobby is. because these are just things I do, and I guess it's the label I'm having trouble with. Because there's stuff that I will say, like we haven't even got to like the hardcore hobbies that I've done, like more recently.
Mhm.
I would say, for example, video games. I've played video games since I was I say three. ColecoVision. Yeah, I was 3 years old. And I've played them. I'm 40, and I play. I shouldn't say my age, but I still play video games. Like obviously not as much, and I don't really have time for it, but I want to. And that's something that I would definitely call a hobby. Um, but I also create video games, and that was a hobby for a while. Well, you will notice I have a lot of hobbies. I have a lot of hobbies. Reading manga, hobby. Anime, hobby. I don't know if you've heard of Gunpla, Gundam models. These are plastic models.
Putting together the models.
Yeah, you basically you they're in a rack, and I forgot the name of the rack. But basically you cut them out with these pliers, and you sand them down because there's these little nubs that stick out, and then you put them together.
Glue them together.
We don't glue them.
They click together.
Yeah, they fit. And so after you do that, if you want to paint them, which is what the hardcore people do, and I did that. I used to buy paints and mix my paints, and I had an airbrush. If you look at my Instagram, you'll see some of the paints that I purchased at one point. You have to shave those down pretty well, and then you prime them, and then you paint them. You do like 3 layers of prime. So it's like as you would paint a car, I suppose, or some other apparatus.
Yeah.
That's something I've been doing for over 10 years. And it's more recent times. Yeah.
If I can make a connection there, I want to know if this connects. But okay, I'll just say first of all that I've never really. I mean, I found it interesting to the model stuff, and I think I attempted to build one, and then I stopped. But I have a friend who I see as ISTP, who builds models. You build models. And then I also think ESFP does a lot of stuff like that. For example, including like building their own cosplay for like a Comic-Con. So I want, like, the connection I'm making right now, and I'm wondering is like maybe this is a very SE oriented drive.
When it comes to the models, I would say it's a mix, because like I said, I grew up playing video games. I didn't mention, but I grew up I had Transformers, so I love the idea of things transforming. So all of these things are creative things, and these are all things in my subconscious and in my imagination. So I would immediately tie it into NI, so introverted intuition.
Yeah.
And honestly, because this is me at play, it's introverted feeling, because there's something that I feel about. I just enjoy it. So I don't know what enjoyment is. Is that introverted feeling? I mean, I don't know. But it's certainly an NIFI loop.
Yeah, I think it is.
In fact,
yeah.
I don't see the connection to SE just yet. Like, I'm going through it through my head right now, because TE, extroverted thinking, is the ability to actually do the tedious work, and it's very organized. Like at one point I used to buy these plastic containers so that I could separate every single piece. So I would cut all the pieces out, and so I wasn't going to do everything in one sitting, and I don't want to just throw pieces into a box. And so I would separate the head parts, the arm parts, the body parts, the leg parts in little bins. I don't know. It's a container. I got it from Daiso.
Yeah. Like a fishing lure kit kind of.
Yeah, more or less. That's how they look. They cost like $3,000, like a couple dollars. So I would just put them in there as I'm working. So I would imagine that is extroverted thinking doing its job. But as far as extroverted sensing, I guess when I'm looking at the finished product, but I'm still really just imagining, because I'll put them in certain poses, and then maybe I'll make a connection to an anime that I watched, because all of the Gundam models come from anime. And so I feel like it's very, very imagination, both driven and based. Now, I don't disagree with ESFP dressing up being SE based, but I'd also say it's imagination, because they do role playing, and I would agree. I would argue that role playing is also an imagination thing. There's an SE aspect to it, so I'm wondering now if it's an NISE thing. I wonder how that looks for like an INTP, because I've seen INTPs dress up. Yeah, I think. or maybe any DOMs. So I'm wondering, actually, what is your take on cosplay, for example?
I have very little desire to do it.
What about like, okay, so to do it, but like just general, like, is there any aspect of it as a thing that you find pleasing, or do you like looking? What I mean is, do you like looking at people? Would you like to go to a place where people are dressed up like that? Are you interested on role playing? I wonder. So maybe not dressing up, but just the idea of role playing, or these types of things.
Um, sure. Actually, I mean, I enjoy like okay. What I connect to that is like improv and the creation of a scenario and work like bouncing off of each other and creating a scenario. I love that.
Okay.
But I almost feel like it's like this might be the difference between SE extroverted sensing and extrovert intuition, because like the less there is around me that's like a prop, the more free I feel to like do improv. And I feel cosplay to me can feel a bit maybe I also haven't seen like the most like passionately created like cosplay stuff, so I'm not sure. But for example, Halloween, do you enjoy Halloween?
I did. I liked Halloween as a kid. These days I don't like it that much because honestly, in Asia, it's only ever been an excuse for females to dress provocatively. But it is, I guess, I don't know.
Do you enjoy like oh, here's a chance to like dress up in a costume?
Unfortunately, I'm such a perfectionist and so like I just never have the time, money, or any of the energy to do it perfectly, or else I just don't do it. So I end up not doing it. In the past, I was around somebody who did special effects makeup, and so we did zombie makeup. So it was like professional. So that's like somebody just took a marker and did it. Like it was really cool. So I had white out contact lenses, and I wore those, and basically we were zombies. So that was really cool. But that was for an event in Japan. I have photos. I'll show you someday.
And you had fun doing that.
Yeah. Well, we were also selling stuff, so maybe it was the selling that was fun. But yeah, it was just fun that I was participating, and I got attention. So like, for some reason, there are times where I really want attention, even though I don't really come off as an attention seeker. I don't want to. I don't want to come off as that. But there is a part of me that does want that. Like I love attention actually when it's attention I'm asking for. So I guess that's extroverted sensing. But yeah, it's not a drive. I'm not driven to do that, you know.
Yeah, and I wonder it seems that it is a big drive for certain people. It is a big drive. Like oh, it's the convention is coming around. We're gonna make this, and I can't wait to show people. You know, and that doesn't, like, as I say that, it doesn't sound like it's in me.
It's not INTP at all. I mean, that's that showing off something. I don't like that. In fact, that's what's different between East Asian culture and Western culture, because what I'm picturing is like California. Those people dress up, they do dialogue, they do all this stuff, and like Japanese, for example, they don't do any of that. And when they dress up, they're just doing it to embody that character. They don't do dialogues and stuff. They do poses for photos, and that's the end of the story. Okay? Whereas in America, it's this like almost obsessive, like really, really nerdy aspect to it, where it's like, I am that person for the day. And so they try to take on that persona, and that to me is something psychological going on. Whereas Japan, there's none of that going on. And so I don't know what to call that. And that's actually something we could talk about later, because I've wanted to discuss this with somebody for ages, because I have almost no experience with Western culture, but also with cosplay, because that became popular while I was not in the United States. And so I, on the other hand, have tons of firsthand experience with cosplay, et cetera, in Japan and in Korea. And it's completely different. And we've talked about whether or not I would do it. The answer is no, but I enjoy it. I love seeing people take on characters and seeing their take on a character from an anime or manga that I've read or watched or that enjoy. And there's some fetishizing there as well. And that's again, part of East Asian culture. It's very normal to have idols and to sort of idolize people and do all these types of things. Like the entertainment industry here is different than in the West. And that's something that is actually embodied in myself. Embodied, is that the word I want? Imprinted. I mean, it's a part of me. And so I do enjoy it. It is entertaining to me, but not for the reasons it would be for someone in San Diego.
Yeah. Well, what I'm pointing to is like people getting a joy out of actually making the thing and like making it in time for the event and then showing their creation and have like almost I personally think the drive is very social. It's like hey, I made this so that we can appreciate it like together, you know, like
I see.
so I mean that's like some people live for the convention and like building it for the convention.
I also see a lot of competitiveness in it as well. So
Well,
there's
sure.
Different. What I'm trying to say is there's different ambition behind what you're saying, because there are the people, I would imagine them being like INFP or something, or ISFP maybe, that love designing and creating stuff, and so they almost become an extrovert for the day because they really want to show it off. They're very shy, but they become not so shy when they put it on. So that's very fascinating to me. But then if I'm like thinking about ESFP, I really can't see them spending the time on creating. They seem like the kind of person who would either buy something or have another person create it for them and then very happily wear it for them.
I personally think that it's actually quite authentically ESFP to like create, to have the project and like think about the convention as a deadline, and then they're going to create for the convention.
I see.
Which is, yeah, like I feel almost that's almost like a ESFP, very authentic, like craftsman, like project. But I see like tertiary TE, you know.
Right, tertiary TE, but the SE, I mean, how is that being appeased during this process? Because it's wanting to just, I don't know, feel something, and I'm not sure. Is that occurring while they're creating something? I just.
Yes. Well, okay. The SE is like the actual action of like, you know, doing stuff and then wearing it and like being in that situation. See, like I'm saying, like it would probably feel a lot like a DIY project, and a DIY project that I think can be very SE. And then the FE is like
FI.
Sorry, FI. Sorry, FI is like this is like my creation.
Yeah, I can see the FI there. I guess I'd have to think about this more, or just meet people and see if that's the case, because I don't have any evidence.
I'm connecting it to like videos I've watched.
Okay,
like
yeah,
people
again,
doing projects.
I have almost no experience with that Western, and I'm sure you're looking at Western projects. Yeah, so interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so we went there. I'm curious. Like we're very like over here focused.
But at the same time, yeah. So we're gonna come back to you. So you've played games. LOL.
Yeah.
I'm not making a joke. League of Legends. So that's something you've done for a period of time. You definitely watch anime. I don't know if you've ever read manga or like to read manga. So can we talk about your experiences with gaming? So actually, before I do that, I'm starting to notice a pattern. I've noticed you start a lot of things. Sounds very ENTP. You start stuff, but you don't really. What I mean is, you don't not finish them, but you definitely don't continue to do them for long periods of time. Is that a running pattern?
Okay, so I end up doing things for a long period of time accidentally. Sometimes. But League of Legends was something I did for a long time. Well, continuing on from Dota, I did Dota, which is a Warcraft 3 mod. I played that for 3 years. I was really into it. And then for like 7 years, I was very into League of Legends. And I was drawn to it for the competitive aspect and like the depth of like the strategy, things like this. For those who are in the know, season 2 was when I got really into it. But that was what I was drawn to it for, which is, I would almost say like the reason I was drawn to it was psychological.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask. Was it just something to like get away from something?
Well, okay, so
because competitive is not. When I think of competitive, I don't think of an INTP firsthand.
I actually, well, okay. Maybe if you turn the word competitive into mastery.
that, and I feel like this is a realm for you to be competitive. Maybe it's just the real world isn't the right place. Although you've mentioned basketball, which I'd like to ask you about at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, so mastering.
And it felt like the more I knew about the game, the better I could play. And so that's sort of like a TI drive there as an ITP.
Now, you at some point were humbled by you were approaching gaming correctly, if I'm not mistaken, and then you realized that you were doing something. Oh, because like I've noticed that people will like they play the blame. I'm not saying you did this, but they play the blame game, and I've noticed like I play Overwatch, or played. I don't play it these days, and the more I realize that I can lead a team, I can win a game against 6 people by myself. So it's always my fault if something happens. And that's how I play games now, especially or group-oriented games. Whereas people seem to do the opposite. They're just like, oh, we didn't win because you didn't go over there when I told you to, or you're supposed to play tank and do that. And like, there's always all this blaming. But like, I actually proved that I can win as tank, as a healer, as a, what do you call it, DPS. Yeah. So that's not true. I've disproved that. Anyway, so what was the hiccup there?
Yeah, okay. So I also went through the same process, and actually that's one of the reasons why I was so I wanted to play a lot, because I felt like there were psychological lessons to learn, which is that specifically, like, if I focus on what everyone else is doing and I focus there only, then every game I'm going to be the same player. But if I focus on my own play and then what I can learn from it, then every game I can become better and better. That's what I find fascinating about single player solo ladder, because I find the whole situation fascinating, where I'm put with 4 other random people, and then we're playing 5 people against another 5 people, and that was a big part of what I was exploring as I was playing, which is like, how does this even happen? This is just chaos. Oh. You know, a bunch of people. If the people that are playing the most, they probably like don't really have many other things going on in their lives, and so like every once in a while something goes wrong, and then they'll just like throw a tantrum. Like 1 out of 10 people, it's a pretty high chance, you know. Yeah. So I found that aspect of it actually very, very interesting, which is, you know, they say they have a phrase called tilting, which is you stop focusing on the game and you start like going into like an emotional spiral.
Yeah, because people like try to trigger people with that phrase. They'll be, oh, he's tilted. It's like the guy was fine, but like then they keep pushing him, and then he ends up tilted anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
That's why I block all chat, by the way, in games I play now. Yeah, like, it's better. Like they're like, you can't communicate with the team. Again, I can lead myself. If you know how to play your character in any game, I would argue, and you know what you're doing, you don't really need to communicate with your team. You can still win competitions. Just saying.
Yeah, so part of like actually a large drive for me wanting to play this game well was psychological, which is like I almost felt like every single block I had must at some point be because I'm looking at the wrong thing.
So is that NE trying to look at different options, or is it TI trying to solidify a strategy, or both?
Both, and it is very NE, which is like, okay, there must be something I'm missing here. That's what's causing me to be unable to rise through this level of play.
Mm-hmm. So 7 years, and then what happened? Why did you stop playing?
I got my software engineering job. Mm-hmm. I got really into it. I focused on software for 2 years. Mm-hmm. And in that time, I stopped playing League of Legends. I went back to try to play, and then I realized I don't remember anything anymore. So I just put it down.
Yeah, that seems to be how it works. Yeah. Okay, so that was League of Legends gaming. Anime. It seems like you watch it, but you don't watch it like consistently. Um, so is anime is it the genre anime, or is it just you just watch stuff?
I think in a very NE fashion, I I happen to go into things that seem to hold promise. They seem interesting,
Mhm.
and then I pursue it farther, and if it continues to be interesting, I keep going, and then some every once in a while, it's like something that I want to finish.
Mhm.
And anime, what I like about anime, and we talked about this, is like in a very different way. It seems very simplified as opposed to other kinds of media, where it's very clear in how it's presenting the story.
Mhm.
The characters are all like defined a specific way, and so I find that somewhat useful to like draw my lines and like understand what it's saying about life and stuff.
So I think you mentioned before that the definition of the characters are exaggerated, because I mean, I would say, well, movies are the same. Like you said, media, right? So like TV shows and stuff, like certain characters are certain ways. Like Seinfeld, Kramer is Kramer,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and George Costanza is George Costanza.
Yeah.
So that's very clear cut. So delineate for me, if you will, the different what you mean exactly, and like what would be like what in traditional media is not defined for you.
I mean, I think well, Western media, I think the characters are much less. Uh, just the word tropey comes to mind. They're much less embodying a certain way of being, even though they do like when I think of like Marvel, each person kind of takes on a certain character.
So maybe it's imaginary characters is what it is.
I mean, it's drawn. It's
Because
it's it's
okay, when you
there.
said in Western media, then what about you say you watch K dramas and you've probably watched Korean movies, Japanese movies. Would you say that it's vastly different from Western cinema, and are the characters more tropey than Western?
That's interesting. I actually okay. So when I watch Korean stuff, people aren't actually. I don't think people are that tropey, even though they do have a certain like kind of like character.
Hmm.
Actually, and Western stuff can be quite tropey. Like, but to me, the Western tropiness
Mm-hmm.
is much less nuanced.
Okay.
It's like they're just gonna this person's gonna make quips. That's like their thing,
Uh-huh.
like that, but nothing more. But
So maybe it's a writing style. I'm just trying to find the origin of this, the difference between anime, which is written by certain people and certain types of people. It has a certain voice. There's a similarity. There's also trends. Like anime created this year are vastly different than 5 years ago, and much different than the '90s styles of artwork and storytelling. The characters have not always been so tropey. Like if you watch an anime from the '70s, I mean there are obvious characters of this type of person, but it's it's more subtle, or it's not like not harped on as much. Whereas now I feel like they almost have to, like they just tell you this character is like they base it almost feel like they're telling you, like as if you couldn't figure it out for yourself. Um,
yeah, I will just say this though. One other thing that I enjoy about anime, and now maybe this is like also I wonder if this is like Japanese culture influence, which is it likes to uh, provide space, like um, and this is somewhat in Korean media as well, which is this a certain silence means something. Um, and well, okay, so I'll go back to the Japanese anime I just watched, which is Free Run, and Free Run. I don't know how they did it really, but they made it feel like this world is way bigger than you think it is. Like everything on the screen is just like a snapshot of this whole thing, and like there's so much more happening that we're not showing you.
okay.
And
As opposed to
as opposed to here's the story and here's the people and that's it.
Aren't they just relying on you? I mean, let's say we're talking about movies, right? So it's like real life. They're relying on you to know that there's more. Like if you have a movie based in Chicago, you know the whole world isn't just Chicago, right?
Well, okay, there's a way that you can present that so that it feels like Chicago is just one of the cities, as opposed to this is a story in Chicago.
Like, are you okay? For example, Cheers, which is from Boston, like it felt like Boston was the only place to ever exist on Earth, I guess, because it's that's the point. It's a bar in Boston, and like they talk about going to places outside of the bar, but like I think there's only scenes inside of Ted Danson's apartment. Aside from that, I don't think there's any other scenes in the show. I don't remember his character name.
Yeah, and I mean, I would venture to say that Cheers, for example, like when you watch it, like the point is not the bar and the point is not Chicago.
It's the relationship.
It's the characters and they're talking, and it's like you could replace that with anything. It doesn't feel like an actual world.
But they were very tropey too.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, it doesn't feel like an alive environment though.
It depends. What if you were from Boston and you just know what that you could find that in 10 different places at that time period. So I think it depends on who's watching. They're not trying to speak to someone specifically. I'm just saying you would have a different experience depending on what your background is. And like even like when I watch a movie and you watch a movie, we're looking at different things. I'm sure we're watching it for different reasons. We're getting something different out of it. We're feeling different emotions, if any, during it, etc., etc. So I would say it's definitely perspective based, and depends on your perception.
Yeah. So as we're talking right now, I am realizing that I do appreciate that though, which is I appreciate when there are small details in the media that suggests that this world is far larger than what you're seeing on the screen. And another world I'm thinking about is Lord of the Rings.
I don't know if I watched that.
Okay. Did you watch Pacific Rim?
I did, but I mean, isn't that about aliens?
It's about kaiju. It's about monsters that are emerging, and then the world is like trying to conquer them.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm not sure what you mean yet, because like I do remember that. Isn't it just based on Earth? So I don't feel like it felt bigger than Earth. Just felt like there's monsters attacking Earth.
Okay. One reason why it felt very big is because like because of these kaiju, the human beings on Earth all like decided to work separately but together on their own like huge machines to conquer these monsters. And each machine was like characteristic of their people. Like there was a Russian machine and there was a Chinese machine and there was a US machine.
That's weird.
And things like that.
Okay, maybe we can talk about that later because I'm not going to be able to process that.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so we've gone through quite a number of our hobbies. I don't know if we're going to get through all of them, it seems. Anything remarkable or any hobby that we missed that has actually had what is the most impactful hobby of in your life? And do you still do it?
I'll bounce it back to you first so I can think perhaps.
I don't have the answer. I mean, for me, it's probably actually probably manga. Reading manga, and I buy magazines. We didn't talk about this. It's not a hobby. I purchase magazines from Japan that are both a mix of manga and other things, and like I just love looking at them and getting ideas. They're inspiring. So for me, it's any hobby that inspires me in my real life, because people often think these are things that are a waste of time, but a lot of my ideas come from not directly, obviously. Like that's just, again, like it's me trying. I can't explain what introverted intuition is. It's just it appeases, or not even appeases. It fulfills some empty part of me, or I don't even know if it's empty. Just it satisfies or satiates some thirst that I don't get from the real world. And I feel like maybe as a child, movies would have done that, but I feel like movies don't do it for me anymore. So I'm not really into movies per se. I don't really watch them unless it's like something cool to watch. So yeah, I would say those types of things. So not physical things. So like skateboarding, riding my bike, all those things were purposeful and practical. So those are not things that really stuck with me. They didn't impact my life. In fact, I don't remember them. But I'm thinking, okay, what have I done the past 20 years consistently? And that is learning languages, but also I'll package all that together: games, anime, manga, just fantasy sort of things.
Do you see if learning languages can be also part of the same group, or is it a different thing for you?
Learning language is just I like making connections, I think, to different things, and I like being able to. I don't like not being able to talk to people. First of all, like I don't like not understanding something. So it is good to understand, but then you might say, well, why don't you know all the languages? Well, I don't, and I don't want to. Like, I'm not interested in talking to Greek people, nor will I learn Greek. So that's not it. That's part of it. But there is some sort of like, I see what you mean by wanting to tie it together. There's something about it that's sort of not real. It's like, I speak English, I'm a native English speaker, but when I speak a different language, I not become a different person, but I'm able to access a different world that isn't reality for me. So it's almost as if I'm living in an imagination when I'm speaking another language. It doesn't make sense, but but learning Japanese, for example, the ambition behind that or motivation is, like I said, I was into the literature, but also I'm into anime, manga, etc. So for me, it's like, yeah, I'll learn the language, because I didn't mention this, but I can't stand. I don't read manga in English. I don't read in any other language. I can't stand it. I can't stand dubbed things. So even if I'm watching, if I really don't know Japanese, like I would use. Well, I use Japanese subs, actually, but I would use English if I really felt desperate. Yeah. So, I don't know if I can tie language together into that or not. I'm not sure.
I will say that what I've seen in talking about the hobbies that I have, I've seen that I really do love the sense that one small detail points to like an immense world that I don't see yet. And so I'm reminded of some people say about chess, for example, simple to learn. It takes a lifetime to master.
Yeah.
Like that kind of world is the kind of thing that I am often very drawn to, and that's why I was drawn to League of Legends, as well as I mean, I'm drawn to that for languages. And then when I was talking before, well, not languages so much as like psychology. And then I was just reflecting in my head as we were talking. That's one reason why I find the world of Lord of the Rings very interesting, because it's what they don't say that points to like how big the world really is.
Okay, I'm gonna have to a think on what that means, because it's not really connecting with me, and I'm just now thinking a little bit further into myself. It's like the reason why I'm not interested into the real world. These are all things that an INTJ are about. I want to make new things. I want to create new stuff, and so all of these things that exist in anime and manga, etc., they're all things that don't exist in the real world, and they'd be really cool if they did. And yeah, it's just that it's like scratching that itch for me. It's like, I can't make this happen. It's not even realistic, but at least I can fantasize or imagine it happening. And I get pleasure from that. I suppose.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Well, we didn't talk about one hobby of mine, which is I like Japanese import cars and import tuning.
Import cars, import tuning. Okay.
So we'll leave that as just a mystery.
Okay, or we can even maybe we can follow on. We'll see. Maybe. Well, what do you think?
I think that I don't know if you have a hobby currently, and I wanted to ask if you have a hobby that you are currently actively pursuing.
Currently actively pursuing. There's something that I'm studying deeply, which is positive psychology, law of attraction type things.
Is that a hobby?
That I found it very interesting for a long time, and I studied it deeply. So studying, if you want to try.
Right, but isn't that your main thing?
Sure.
So differentiate between not work, but like what you normally do versus, because hobby to me is a side thing. It's not like, I mean, I guess you could turn a hobby into your life, sure. Like that, like cosplayers. There's professional cosplayers. That's all they do.
Yeah.
I mean, not all they do, but That's their main thing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hobby turned into a profession, so to speak. So would you say that you've turned a hobby of knowledge into somewhat of a profession?
Yes, and sorry. I think I've generally done that in my life, where I typically want the thing that I'm most interested in at the time to be like my main thing, and then the things that I do on the side are like I'm taking a break, like but
those
like,
aren't hobbies.
They're not hobbies. Like that's like stuff like working out.
Okay, yeah, sure.
But,
see, now working out is another hobby of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess what I'd like to make like as a statement is, what is a hobby to you and what is a hobby to me? So for me, hobbies are like somewhat of an escape, but also somewhat of a way for me to express myself creatively, outside of my main, what I'm working on, like my profession, for example. So for you, it's if you could turn it into a statement.
For me, I prefer that my main thing that I'm focused on, my work, is a source of pleasure.
Okay.
It's a source of exploration and pleasure. And then when I'm taking a break is like me putting my brain down and like doing something else for a while, which is like working out.
Because that's kind of what my hobbies are. I'm not really like my brain's just taking a break.
Yeah, but I generally when I do stuff like that, I generally don't enjoy it that much.
Okay.
When I'm taking a break, I'm not enjoying myself when I'm taking a break.
Okay,
I enjoy what I'm doing in the main thing.
Okay, so are you tying enjoyment in with hobbies? Are you saying that in order to, or rather, hobbies should be enjoyable, or are you saying the opposite? Or are you saying, so third, or that everything you do should be enjoyable? And if it isn't, it's kind of just a write-off.
I'm somewhat saying that. That's partly why I stopped playing League of Legends.
So, because you said, for example, working out is you turning your brain off. But that's not enjoyable. So why do it? Because
the process of getting fit sounds interesting. Sure, getting fit sounds interesting, but the working out is just how I get there.
So it's the outcome that you're interested in.
Yeah.
But there's no. Okay, I see. You don't enjoy. I mean, I don't necessarily enjoy lifting weights either. It's kind of just it's the ability to kind of let out some, like, use energy and that kind of thing. And there are moments of endorphins and I guess serotonin and those types of serotonin. Anyway, certain hormones that are coming out, but it's not every time. It's not every day. So it's depressing or disappointing rather when I have what I call a bad workout, a poor workout, because I want to enjoy it. So I don't enjoy it consistently, that's for sure. The results too, it's like sometimes I feel like, man, I'm looking pretty good today. I feel pretty strong. And then there's some days like, do I even go to the gym? I feel like I've never been to the gym in my life, even though people were like, you have big muscles. I'm like, well, okay, fine, but I don't feel that way. So it's hit and miss with me. So I'm wondering if I was just kind of thinking maybe that's the same for you, but I'm pretty sure you're not taking it nearly as seriously as I am.
I'm not. However, I have recently connected the idea of physically redlining as like a way of shocking myself awake if I'm feeling sluggish. And so see, again, like my my workouts are actually I work out for a very functional reason. I don't really work out to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I do either.
Yeah.
If I could not do it and still feel the same or have the same results, I wouldn't do it either.
Yeah, but I know that I would feel great. Like what I've realized is if I redline, which means like sprint as hard as I can and like just run out of breath, and then I recover. After that, I know that I'll be awake.
Okay.
And so that's what I connect to working out these days.
I see.
Because focusing my brain really hard doesn't do that for me. So it's a very like health oriented, like wake up approach.
Physical exertion, mental exertion. I split the two. I don't know if there's a third or if there's I'm sure you could do a mix of both. run and read a book at the same time, or you know what I mean? Like, yeah. So I think you're at least finally realizing that the physical part actually helps the mental part. That's what I think you're saying.
Yeah,
because it's the same for me. Like, I work out for lots of reasons, like to battle any depression I might have, to use energy, to just get the hormones going, because I want to use my brain optimally, and I know that working out allows me to do that. I feel way different after a workout than I do before. The days I don't work out, I hate my life. So, and I don't think I function as well mentally either. So I think that's what's going on there. Anyway, we definitely have different sort of approaches to hobbies and definitions of what a hobby is and different hobbies. And yet there's some overlap, but not at all if you ask me, because every hobby that we have that overlaps is for different reasons. So that's my conclusion.
Yeah, that's interesting.
All right, that was Hobbies with James and Derek.
See you next episode.